We usually think of the end of the world as a bang, an explosion, a war, a sudden stop. But in economics, the end of the world doesn't happen with a bang, it happens with a whisper. And then it happens with a roar. In 1913, in Berlin, you could walk into a bakery and buy a loaf of bread for 0.5 marks. It was a stable price, a predictable life. 10 years later, in November 1923, that same loaf of bread did not cost 5 marks. It did not cost 50 marks. It cost 201 billion marks. We have all seen the photos. The children building pyramids out of bundles of cash. The men pushing wheelbarrows full of money just to buy a newspaper. We look at those photos and we laugh. We think, those foolish Germans, they printed too much money. That could never happen here. We think it's a history lesson, but it's not. It's a warning. Because the most terrifying part of the Weimar hyperinflation wasn't the end. It was the beginning. For the first few years, the inflation felt good. The stock market went up. Factories were humming. Unemployment was low. The government told the people that the printing press was a tool for prosperity. They were experiencing what the Austrian economist Ludwig von Mises called the Katastrophenhause, the crack-up boom. It is a specific economic phase where the currency is dying, but the economy looks like it's partying. And if you look at the United States in 2025, at the stock market hitting record highs while the average family can't afford groceries, you have to ask yourself a terrifying question. Are we already in the early stages of the crack-up boom? Today, we are going to expose the signal, the one specific psychological shift that turns high inflation into hyperinflation. We are going to look at the math that proves the US government is insolvent. And we are going to show you why the money in your bank account is not money at all. It is a melting ice cube. How does a country go bankrupt? Ernest Hemingway famously said, "Gradually, then suddenly." The United States is currently in the gradually phase, but the math suggests we are about to hit suddenly. Let's look at the numbers. For decades, the US government has spent more than it makes. This is called a deficit. To pay for this, they borrow money by selling treasury bonds. For a long time, this worked because interest rates were effectively zero. It was free money. But that era is over. In 2024, a historic line was crossed. For the first time in history, the United States government spent more on interest payments for the national debt than it spent on national defense. Think about that. We are paying more to service the past than we are to defend the future. The interest bill alone was $882 billion. And here is the trap. The government doesn't have $882 billion. They are running a deficit. So, how do they pay the interest? They borrow more. They are taking out new credit cards to pay off the interest on the old credit cards. This is what finance calls a debt spiral. Once you enter a debt spiral, there is only one way out. You cannot tax your way out. If you taxed 100% of every billionaire's wealth, it wouldn't cover the deficit sit-in for 6 months. You cannot grow your way out. The debt is growing faster than the GDP. So, there is only one option left. The same option Weimar Germany chose. The same option Zimbabwe chose. Print the money. But they don't call it money printing anymore. That sounds too scary. They call it quantitative easing. They call it yield curve control. They call it liquidity injections. It is all the same thing. It is the artificial creation of currency to buy government debt because nobody else wants it. In 1923, the German government had 130 printing companies working 24 hours a day to churn out paper marks. In 2025, the Federal Reserve doesn't need printing presses. They have a keyboard. They can create $1 trillion in seconds. But here is the secret they don't tell you. When they print money, they are not creating value. They are stealing it. Every dollar they print dilutes the value of the dollars in your savings account. It is a tax that nobody voted for. It is a theft that happens in broad daylight. And the victims are always the same. The middle class, the savers, the people who did the right thing. Most people think hyperinflation is just a lot of inflation. They think it's when prices go up 10% or 20%. But that is wrong. Hyperinflation is not a number. It is a psychological event. The The defining characteristic of the Weimar warning is not the money supply. It is the velocity of money. Velocity is the speed at which money moves through the economy. In a normal economy, people save. You get your paycheck, you put some in the bank, you wait to buy a car. The money sits still. But in a crack-up boom, something snaps in the public mind. People realize that the money is losing value every day. They realize that if they wait until next week to buy a pair of shoes, the shoes will cost double. So they stop saving. They start spending immediately. In Zimbabwe in 2008, this reached a level of insanity. Drivers would exchange their paychecks for black market goods 3 times a day because the currency would devalue by lunchtime. ATMs would crash with data overflow errors because the machines couldn't process the number of zeros. This is the signal, the flight from cash. When you see the middle class buying things they don't need, luxury watches, third cars, overpriced houses, just to get rid of their cash, you are seeing the signal. They aren't buying because they are rich. They are buying because they are panicked. They are trying to turn paper into anything real. Ludwig von Mises described this perfectly. He said, "Eventually a point is reached where nobody has a sufficient amount of cash at hand to pay. The monetary system breaks down." In Weimar Germany, this shift happened fast. At first, people trusted the government. They thought the inflation was temporary. But once the trust broke, the velocity went vertical. A woman in 1923 ordered a cup of coffee for 5,000 marks. By the time she finished drinking it, the price had risen to 8,000 marks. This is the tipping point. It is the moment when the public rejects the currency. And once that trust is broken, no amount of interest rate hikes can fix it. Look around you. Do you see the signs of the crack-up boom? The stock market is at all-time highs. But are companies actually selling more products? Or are their stock prices just floating up on a sea of printed money? Real estate prices are at all-time highs. But are houses actually better? Or is the dollar just worth less? We are being gaslit. The government tells us inflation is coming down. But they measure inflation using a basket of goods they can manipulate. They don't include the things that actually matter to your wealth, assets. If the stock market goes up 20%, but the currency loses 20% of its purchasing power, have you made any money? No. You have just run in place. This is the illusion of the boom. And just like in 1923, the winners are the people who owe money. If you are a massive corporation with billions in debt, inflation is your friend. You pay back your debt with worthless dollars. If you are the government with $38 trillion in debt, inflation is your only plan. But if you're a retiree, if you have a pension, if you have a savings account, you are the victim. Your life's work is being liquidated to bail out the system. In 1923 Germany, the middle class was wiped out. The Mittelstand, the savers, the professionals, lost everything. A lifetime of savings that could have bought a house was suddenly not enough to buy a box of matches. We are seeing the same dynamic today. The wealth gap is exploding not because of capitalism, but because of Cantillon effects. The people closest to the money printer, the banks, the government, the megacore, get the money first, before prices rise. You get the money last, after prices have already skyrocketed. So, what happens next? If history is a guide, the system will try to keep the plates spinning for as long as possible. They will introduce central bank digital currencies, CBDCs, to try and trap the money in the system. They will implement price controls, just like Kamala Harris proposed and just like Weimar Germany tried. But price controls never work. They just create shortages. When the price of bread was capped in Germany, the bakers stopped baking. Why would they sell bread at a loss? The shelves went empty. The pattern is inevitable. 1. Massive debt. 2. Massive printing to pay the debt. 3. Asset inflation, the boom. 4. Psychological rejection, the crash. 5. Currency reset. We are currently at stage 3. We are transitioning to stage 4. The Weimar warning is flashing red. The interest payments exceeding defense spending is the siren. So, what do? You stop playing their game. You stop saving in the currency they can print. You start owning the things they cannot print. Gold, silver, land, Bitcoin, hard skills. These are the arcs that carry wealth through the flood. In 1923, the man who owned a herd of cows became rich. The man who had 1 million marks in the bank starved. The choice is yours. You can believe the government when they say, everything is fine. Or you can look at the math. The math says the dollar is dying. The math says the cycle is ending. Don't be the person holding the bag when the music stops. Subscribe, because next week we are going to talk about the war economy and why every collapse ends in conflict.